Hello, so I'm going to try and show you how to make your own Microbit, and this is my prototype. I'm going to dismantle this and hopefully you'll see more or less how to build it from that. This one's got a few things missing. First of all, I haven't put the buttons on here, and also there should be 5 terminal posts down here which I haven't put on yet, so they're obviously the equivalent of the pads on the Microbit that you can connect to with a crocodile clip. We're going to have a look at see how to construct the back. This one's a bit messy with lots of wires here, but these are the ones that will go to the buttons and also to the terminal posts. And you can also see that at the moment the battery's just dangling, so obviously I need to stick that on somehow. But we're going to have a look at how to dismantle this, and hopefully you'll see how to build your own. So what we've got is a Kitronic breakout board here for the Microbit, and I've gone for the type that I had to solder the pins myself, and that's because I can then access these solder pads easily, and I'll need those to connect to the batteries and the terminal blocks down the bottom, and also to get power. Now, one very important thing, I don't know if you can see, but here I have broken the tracks, so I'll hold that a little bit closer. So just here, and the reason for that is this nut here otherwise would short circuit across these 2 tracks, and as these are the power rails, your batteries would drain very quickly and possibly even get hot, and the whole thing wouldn't work. So let's have a look at how to take apart. There's 4 screws, one here, should be one here, and there should be one here, but there's not on my prototype because I got the holes in the wrong place. So I'm going to just undo these, and underneath each of these screws, these are 8mm, well, these are actually 8mm bolts, and underneath you should see that in a moment that there'll be a spacer. Now these don't have a nut on the other side, they tap directly into the perspex. So under here is a spacer, so you can just about see that there, cut out a 3mm perspex. And then we've got these bolts here which just go through. These are I think they're 8mm bolts. I think they must be, yeah, 8mm bolts. Okay, so let's have a bit of a closer look. You can see what we've got at the bottom is the main circuit board with the LEDs on it, and there's nothing else on this side, although you can just see these 4 bolts here. Then I've got, it goes bolt, then there's a nut here, and then there are 3 spacers, and then there's this piece of perspex here, and then there's a nut on the top. So these are 20mm bolts, and it goes the bolt head, PCB, nut, 3 spacers, the sheet, and then the nut on the top, and there's 4 of those. Then what we have hiding down here is the board, which actually has the photo transistors on it. Then there's a bit of a guide which holds the photo transistors in front of the LEDs on the Microbit. There's the Microbit itself. You can see there's a cable tie here going all the way around. There's the Kitronic adapter, and then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 spacers here. So that's 3mm plastic, so that's 21mm, plus we've got PCB on the top of it. So I think this must be a 25mm bolt. I'll check on that. And so we've got one of those on both sides. We've got some spaces on this side as well. I'm going to just take it apart a bit more so we can see how it all fits together. So the easiest thing was probably if I take off these ones first. Okay, so I've taken off the 4 bolts. I'm going to lift this off of the circuit board, and you can see that I'm connected with a ribbon cable, which I'm just going to take out. Let's have a quick look at the main board. You can see there are these 25 resistors. I've used 100 ohm resistors, and they're on the opposite side to the LEDs. Make sure you solder these first. Then I have my 4 buffer chips, and the notch is on the right hand side. power can be connected either down here or up here. If you look at this box header at the top, you'll see that the notch is at the top. And we've got these sill resistors. Now with these, there's a dot at one end and it has to go at this end. It's marked on the PCB. So the dot at this end, dots at this end, dots at this end. I've actually put these in a little socket in case, because these are 10K pull-ups and you might want to try other values, but I think these work quite well. So if you have got a spare bit of IC socket that you can cut to put there, then that's probably a good idea. And let's have a look at these posters again. You can see 3 spacers, the nut, the bolt, the nut, and these are actually 20mm bolts. Okay, so that's 20mm. Now let's have a look at this assembly. So what we've got is the Microbit, and we've got the Perspex, and we've got this ribbon cable here. So I'm going to dismantle this. I'm going to have to cut this cable tie here to show you. And then I'm going to ease out the Microbit. Okay, so you can see the Microbit is unharmed. And then I've got this little guide here, which just, if I pull that off, okay, so you can see it's made of 2 pieces of Perspex with some, well, I think these must be 6mm bolts going through here. And these 2 bits are identical, except this piece here has slightly bigger holes, so the bolt can go through and then tap into the other one. Now this is useful because, first of all, it helps you put it on there, and then when you position the Microbit on, it lines up the LEDs with the phototransistors. But also, when you are soldering these phototransistors in place, it helps you get them perpendicular and properly spaced out. Okay, so once again, 7 spacers. Mine are 2 different colours for no good reason. I think we're going to take these apart. I haven't got my pliers, so please excuse me using the snip. Oops, there go all my spacers. Okay, so here is the Kitronic breakout board. Now what I've soldered on here is 2, I think the yellow wires are the buttons, the pink wire is the 3 volts, and I've actually soldered 2 wires. I think it's 2 wires. Yeah, I've soldered 2 white wires onto the ground, and the reason I've done that is because one needs to go to the power, it provides the power to the board along with the pink wire, and the other one is going to be for the switches. Let's make a bit of space. Okay, so this uses a bolt which is a 30mm bolt. And let's have a look at this assembly here. Okay, so this little assembly has the 25 phototransistors, and when you solder them, use this assembly to help you get them properly spaced and as perpendicular as possible to the board. Now let's just take this out. Okay, so on the other side is a 2x13 way header, and I want to try and show you the correct side to solder on. Now here's a bare PCB. Can you see in the top left hand corner here there's what we call a via, this little hole at the top. Okay, and there's also one down here. If I flip it over, you can see there are far fewer tracks. Okay, so if I flip it back around the correct way, this is a lot busier. There's a lot more tracks here. So what you want is this busier side with the more tracks, and the via in the top left hand corner. That's the side that your photo transistor is going to be on. And then let's flip it over. We're going to actually do the soldering on the side with less tracks. Now, in a later revision of the circuit board, I'll obviously make this more clear. Now, the other thing to notice is, can you see that there are square-shaped holes and circular holes? Now, a phototransistor has a long wire and a short wire. Now, the long wire has to go in the rectangular hole, and the short wire goes in the circular hole. Okay, that's because the short wire is the collector and the long wire is the emitter, and the emitters are all commoned together, as you can probably see. You see all the diamond shapes are commoned together, so all the emitters are commoned together and then go down here to pin, which if it's this way around is pin 1, which is the ground. Okay, so what you can do is just check that if you like. The ground, which goes to all 25 ones, needs to be the long wire. I'll put all this in some written notes. Okay, so there we are. Now actually, this circuit board here can fit directly on there. Okay, and it will work like that, but obviously it's a lot longer. Just remember on this one that your notch is here. Okay, let's have a look at this assembly here. What I've got is a ribbon cable here, and hopefully you can see there's a notch there. Can you see that notch? So that is going to line up with the slot on here, so that's why it has to go like this and then bend down like that. Okay, so the notch is here. This cable can be a bit tricky to make, so if you'd like me to make one for you, please get in touch. And you can see it goes all the way down here. Now on this one here as well, I've put the notch there. I don't suppose it matters really, because this one here doesn't actually have a key on it, so you don't need to worry too much about that, but I think it makes sense to have it there. What we've got on top of here is a piece of plastic, and this is, I think, a 12mm bolt, so the bolt goes through there. There's a nut, a piece of plastic along there, and another nut, and the purpose of that is just to give this a bit something to rest on, because otherwise it tends to flop around a bit. So this just rests on there. It'd be easy if this was a different colour, but unfortunately it's not. And then you can see as well that this male header here is held in place with a nut and bolt there, and I guess that must probably also be a 12mm bolt. I think these two here are the same, so they're probably both 12mm bolts. Okay, so let me just show you that all the way around again. Okay, so I'm sorry that's not the easiest of instructions to follow, but hopefully it will get you started. Obviously these 4 holes in the corners here line up with the 4 nuts and bolts on here. Now you could, I suppose, instead of having this nut here, I suppose you could have an extra spacer instead, but it's a lot more it's more difficult to assemble, because as you hold this here, this bolt falls through. So it's easier to have a nut there, put your spacers on, put this on the top, and then have another nut on the top. This would probably be all a lot easier with some photos and some written text, and I will get around to doing that soon. But in the meantime, if you're keen to get on, hopefully this will do. Oh, and there's my web address there, out of focus. So if you want to know more information, go to this website and you can find my email address there. Okay, that's it. Thank you. Do email me if you have any questions, and I will get some proper instructions together soon.